You know, they say if there was one thing that St. John Marie Vianney was really good at, it was his capacity to make people feel sorry for the wrong that they have done. Apparently, that was the reason why many people were flocking to him for confession. Somebody once asked me a very curious question in a Bible study session. Ang tanong niya ganito, did Jesus ever say, I am sorry? I did not even think twice about it. I said, but of course. Where on earth is that question coming from? Don't you believe that Jesus was truly human like you and me? Pero may follow-up question siya. Sabi niya, but are we not supposed to believe that since Jesus is the Son of God, He became one like us in all things except sin? Of course, I immediately knew that he was referring to Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15, where we read, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has similarly been tested in every way, yet without sin. And so yung follow-up question was this, what would Jesus say, I am sorry for, if He never did anything wrong? Ano daw dapat ipag-sorry ni Jesus if He never did anything wrong? Well, I smiled and I said to him, you must be confusing between committing sin and doing wrong. I think it is when we deliberately and willfully do wrong, even when we know that it is wrong, that we commit sin. But when you hurt somebody's feelings without intending it, or sometimes even with the best of intentions, we may be doing something wrong, but we're not necessarily committing a sin. The capacity to make mistakes without intending them is something that we consider very human. Normally, when we realize them, we feel sorry about them, and we resolve not to do them again, diba? This is part of growing up as a normal human being, isn't it? Now, you remember that scene of the finding of Jesus in the temple? If that was truly factual and historical, I am almost sure na nagsorry din si Jesus. That he said, I am sorry to his parents for it. You remember what he did at the age of 12? How he stayed behind in Jerusalem without even asking for permission from his parents, who thought he was with them already to Nazareth. And remember how they looked for him everywhere and found him finally only after 3 days. Grabe, no? He was lost for 3 days. And how his mother confronted him with a question, Son, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety. Well, our gospel today is one other passage that convinces me that Jesus also had to learn to say, I am sorry, aside from the other magic words that we all have to learn, like please and thank you. Parang Parang hindi tayo ganap na tao pag wala tayong kababaang loob na mag-sorry. Of course, the gospel writer does not put the words, "I am sorry," in the mouth of Jesus. But this is one clear instance when Jesus said something hurtful and he took back his words when he realized it. Matthew tells us it happened in the region of Tyre and Sidon, where there were many Gentiles, meaning non-Israelites. And he refers to this woman who sought the help of Jesus as a Canaanite woman. Siguro yun ang dahilan kung bakit yung first reading natin ngayon is about the Canaanites, meaning the people who were already living in the land which the Israelites claimed as their promised land. They ended up displacing many of these people when they started occupying the land. In a post-colonial setting, if you don't see anything wrong about that, something must be really wrong with you. I wonder how many former colonial powers have said, "I am sorry," to the countries that they had forcibly colonized and plundered for many centuries, or to the populations of indigenous peoples whom they captured like animals, chained in galleons, and enslaved for many centuries. But then, of course, that is yet another "I am sorry" issue altogether. For the moment, let us stick to the gospel. First, we are told that Jesus simply ignored the Canaanite woman who was just asking for help for her daughter who was tormented by a demon. Sabi ni Matthew, Jesus did not say a word in answer to her. Inisnub siya. Next, when even the disciples could not drive her away, Jesus tells her point blank that she was not included among his concerns. He tells her in a brutally frank way that his mission is meant only for the lost sheep among the Israelite people. Meaning, because this woman was not an Israelite, she was not entitled to his attention. And thirdly, and most serious of all, Jesus said something that was terribly insulting. I wonder if he said this because medyo nainis na siya, nakulitan. He felt annoyed. And this happens to many of us sometimes, di ba? Pag nakukulitan tayo. He probably felt that this woman was already pestering him. Parang minsan gusto mo sabihin, "Lubayan mo nga ako." Well, listen to the hurtful words that Jesus said. Hindi yata tama na kumuha ng pagkain sa mesa at itapon sa mga aso. It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the puppies. Really, yun ang ginamit na term. Not just dogs, but tuta, puppies. He called her a puppy. Take note, this woman is rejected 3 times, but she remains persistent with her request, and she eventually gets what she is asking for. How does she do it? Well, by staying humble, even in her persistence. She's not reacting angrily at the insult. But you could feel the hurt in what she said in reply. Listen to how she expressed it. Something like this: Sir, even the puppies eat the scraps that fall from the master's table. I call that a very subtle form of sarcasm. In short, she was telling Jesus that she was not there to claim any entitlement because she knew and she accepted that she was not part of the Israelite family. Now she would use the very metaphor that Jesus himself used in reference to her. But she would succeed in rubbing it in and moving Jesus to change his attitude toward her. If I may paraphrase yung sinabi niya, she was actually saying, aso na po kung aso. You may call me a dog. I know I am not entitled to anything. I am indeed a dog waiting for whatever bit of mercy you might be able to spare for my daughter who is suffering. Parang sinasabing, I can take the insult for myself if that is what it takes to be able to get a little bit of your mercy. Wow. I'm sure you get to encounter some people who are like that. Lalo na sa panahong ito ng pandemya. A lot of people who are in need and who sometimes have to humiliate themselves, literally to beg. And that's when the twist would happen. Jesus would give in and would even end up affirming the faith of the woman. Jesus would say to her, Woman, how great is your faith. Sa totoo lang, I think what he really said was, Ale, pasensya ka na ha. I'm sorry. Believe naman ako sa pananampalataya mo. How great is your faith. I wonder what Jesus meant by that. What faith was Jesus talking about? This woman is a pagan. And as a Canaanite, she probably worshipped the pagan gods Baal and Asherah. She did not share in their faith in Yahweh, the God of Israel. Pero sabi niya, ang tindi ng pananampalataya mo. How great is your faith. I think what Jesus really meant was, how great is your love. Woman, how great is your love. Jesus was moved because for love of her daughter, she was willing to endure being snubbed, being rejected, or even being insulted. You won't believe what parents sometimes allow themselves to go through for the sake of their children. But Jesus calls it faith. Because true faith comes from love. And St. Paul calls faith, hope, and love the great gifts. Hindi ba sinulat niya yon in 1 Corinthians 13? In the end, only three remain: faith, hope, and love. But then he ends, but the greatest of them all is love. Hindi niya sinabing the greatest is faith. Hindi rin niya sinabing the greatest is hope. The greatest is love. You see, this is the reason why we insist on ecumenism and interreligious dialogue as values in the Catholic tradition. We may not share in the same faith, but we still share in the same humanity that is as capable of love as we are. Wala tayong monopolyo ng pag-ibig. And did not St. Augustine say, Ubi caritas et amor Deus ibi est. Where there is love, there is God. And the implication of that is, where there is no love, there is no God. Even if you might have a lot of piety and religiosity, wherever we find love, even in the most seemingly faithless situations, when we find love, we have to be like Moses. We have to be ready to remove the sandals of our feet, because it is then that we realize that we are standing on sacred ground.